Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you had a good weekend. Today is December 4th, 2023, and this is your first Monday market update of December. We're into the home stretch. Let's jump right in. Let's wrap up last week, and let's preview this week. Coming off the holiday weekend, Monday, markets opened slightly in the red as the market searched for things to focus on. As the U.S. was still nursing a turkey hangover, Chinese eco data made a bang as growth came back into question. Industrial profit growth fell to less than 3% from almost 12%. Remember, they're still the second largest economy, and with growth hitting a wall, recall it sounds like the fear that I've been talking about here. That was enough to cool the optimism with the pause in the Middle East. U.S. housing data came in short for the second time in a week, and that may be indicating some slowing here. And before you think that the markets are worried by that, recall, slowing is what the Fed has been trying to do. ECB's Lagarde came in, had some comments, they took yields down, so stocks made it into the green until President Biden mentioned that prices are still too high for many things. Markets gave back the gains and closed slightly lower. The Dow and S&P both down less than 1/4%. NASDAQ down less than 1/10%. Cyber Monday data was all over the news, and more buying was being done. At whose expense is the question? Brick and mortar, savings, or credit card debt? We'll have to monitor this. Speaking of online, Amazon is now the number one in delivery. More than UPS, more than FedEx, not more than U.S. Postal Service. Not sure how they're measuring that with the way that the Postal Service works around here. Stocks gapped lower again on Tuesday on somewhat random eco data, Australian retail sales, and German consumer climate report. For those of us who think globalization has to be questioned, keep an eye on the news that moves the markets. By 10 a.m., the news wires are back in the holiday spirit. November consumer confidence numbers were all about short and shallow on the recession front and a soft landing. Fed head Waller tried a new line talking about if inflation continues falling, we may see lower rates. Not something we're hearing a lot about, so we'll see how that goes. Markets turned to the green, then came under some pressure on the heels of a pretty ugly 7-year note auction. Remember those pesky Treasury note auctions? Been the new source of market turns. By the end of the day, markets were into the positive, but again, not by much. Dow was up about 1/4%, S&P up 1/10%, and the NASDAQ was up about 1/3%. The investment world did lose a legend in the passing of Charlie Munger, right-hand man to Warren Buffett, just shy of his 100th birthday. His wit, as well as his amazing knowledge, will be missed. Markets gapped higher on Wednesday as eco data was straight down the middle, quite the Goldilocks set. GDP growth was revised up, inflation revised down, get that, immaculate disinflation, and maybe a no landing instead of a soft landing. Markets were not upset by this. Profit taking got started. Then Fed heads Barkin and Bostic tested some old lines, not taking another hike off the table and pushing back on the expectations for a quick return to 2% inflation. Get that, hike still on the table, while the markets, even Bank of America, are expecting cuts in early 2024. Mester said we're in a good place, and markets made it back to the flat line as everyone was getting ready for the core PCE number. The one Fed loves to watch. Dow was up slightly, S&P down 0.1%, the NASDAQ down just a bit more than that. This is what the digestion looks like when you talk about what's happening from the November moves. The data everyone seemed to be waiting for. Thursday found stocks open mixed. Core PCE came in on target, exactly as most expected. Jobless claims was a mixed report. Now there's enough time and reason to dig deeper. Continuing claims are still rising. That means that more people are staying unemployed. That is a sign of a tightening job market. Spoiler alert, this week we'll get BLS jobs data. Eurozone eco data and even Fed head Williams supported the markets, and Yellen even voted for a soft landing. Late in the day, markets got a bid under them and moved ahead. Dow was the leader, up almost 1.5%, S&P up about 1/3%, and coming in last, the NASDAQ finished 1/4% in the red. Aside from the market action, 4 years late, the Cybertruck from Tesla was unveiled. Check that one out if you're still interested. That was the end of November. As a few clients have said, we liked November much better than October. So for the month, the Dow was up 8.8%, the best since October 2022. S&P and NASDAQ, the best month since July of 2022. S&P up 8.9% and the NASDAQ up 10.7% into December we went. Friday had stocks open slightly lower. Morgan Stanley's Wilson, who's been very bearish, warned again about the coming earnings headwinds. Powell was the big wild card. He was set to speak in Atlanta. Once again, if you believe what the Fed said, as I've discussed in these videos, Powell said again that it would be premature to discuss cutting rates. Manufacturing PMI is showing more possible evidence that the economy is slowing. Newswires are also full of year-end 2024 S&P targets. We'll talk about that sometime soon. By the end of the day, the first day of December closed out with the Dow up almost 1%, S&P up a bit over 0.5%, and NASDAQ up about 0.5%. For the week, the Dow was up 2.5%, S&P up about 0.75%, and the NASDAQ was up only 1/3%. This coming week, if you think the markets will follow, if you think that the markets will follow the labor markets, or at least think that the Fed will, this is the week for you. Delayed from last week. Remember, this is jobs week. We'll get ADP, jobs claims, jobless claims, JOLTS, and on Friday, the non-farm payroll numbers. Friday's report will have within it a lot to pay attention to. Hourly earnings, average work week, unemployment rate, and the University of Michigan survey will also be out. Consumer sentiment, along with the closely watched inflation expectation. The next Fed meeting is set December 12th through 13th, and the calendar looks bare, so Fed heads may be in the blackout. We'll see. I wasn't able to find out that, confirm that, but the fact that they're not talking this week must mean they're probably in the blackout. Once again, this week will be heavy on labor market data, but as you've heard, the markets are sniffing out all kinds of random data, thirsty. The more information that can be processed, the more markets thirst for that information. So as we come to the end of the year, please keep in touch. There are some tax losses and gains that might be right for you to take. I don't give personal tax advice, but these are times we talk to the tax advisors a lot. There's a lot to do before the end of the year. Please check out the Friday planning videos for that information. All the videos and even the new blog can be found on my website. Stay in touch and have a great week.